You know, it was liberating when I was finally able to accept that so many of the things that make me feel good or make me feel insecure exist apart from me. I mean, I didn't get to choose my race or my gender or where I was born or what family or what I look like, what my talents are. So those things can't be what I am. They are only tools that who I really am can use. But for what purpose? And what's driving that? Genesis chapter 4, the story of Cain and Abel, I think allows us to have that conversation in a really cool way. And while Cain and Abel aren't as famous as their parents, I believe their story is a little bit more relatable because it exists outside of the garden in the same human condition and broken and competitive world that we live in. Let's quickly review the story. I know a lot of you have heard it, but bear with me. Cain and Abel are brothers. Cain is a gardener and Abel is a shepherd. And they're both producing and manufacturing and taking care of whatever's in their hands. And they bring a part of it to God as an offering. And we don't know why, but he accepts one and rejects the other. He accepts Abel's offering, but doesn't accept Cain's. And because of this, Cain gets really down on himself. He gets frustrated. The Bible says his countenance falls. And, this is where things get really interesting because God doesn't correct his offering. He corrects his approach to life, really. He says to Cain, why are you down? Why are you feeling upset? Which should be our first clue. Because, if we brought a bad offering and someone had a negative reaction to that, then, we would usually want that. We would want that to sort of be something that corrects them, hopefully to not feel that way and do it differently the next time. But God says to him, Cain, you don't need to be feeling bad. Well, why are you upset? Don't you know that if you function correctly, if you do rightly, that you will be accepted? That you will be right with me and right with your environment. But if you don't, then evil and sin is at your door and it desires you. But we are to rule over it. In other words, there's a mindset, an approach that the spirit of darkness needs us to put on first before we produce sin and death. Guys, Satan's not trying to whisper in your ear all the different kinds of sin you can do. It's trying to get you to be a slave, a slave to more, which, we all know leads to greed and fear that then produce sin and death. And Cain put on these chains, and when things didn't go his way or life happened, if you will, they were so loud in his ear that the only choice he felt he had was to kill his brother. And that's what he did. And then he was cursed and exiled. So, what must have his agenda looked like? I mean, what was his mindset? Was it dark and scary before all this happened? No, it was probably innocent. It was probably, what would it look like if I had more of this? Or what would it look like if I was better at this? Or if my life was higher here? Or maybe if I was able to achieve and define success this way? None of these things are wrong. None of these things are against God. It's more, can the spirit of the age, can the enemy get us to dream and to desire away from God? And then that's when we structure our life to serve those items and they become our primary agenda. Our fundamental challenge today is not any different. We have resources and relationships. There's a limited amount. The distribution is random. It's often not fair. Some of them we inherit, others we just seem to have. And, we think our modern world is a lot more complex than what Cain and Abel had to deal with, but it's not. It's that simple. Resources and relationships. So ask yourself, what resources and relationships do I have today? How do I feel about them? How do I feel about, what I have in my hands? And, what is my agenda? What am I trying to accomplish with them? What am I thinking about most of the time? And sort of, where did all that come from? And it often can seem harmless, but we can inadvertently be a slave to darkness and the enemy by how we define living and how we set our goals. Like, God, I need a boyfriend or girlfriend, or I just want to go to school and accomplish this, or I want this person or these set of people to treat me differently or look at me that way, or I want to excel at my career or my business. And then we actually then go out and try to get God to help us with that. And we're saying, God, can you open this door, or can you provide this or that, or why am I going through this, right? And God says, whoa, don't put those chains on me. I'm not going to serve the enemy by setting priorities in that way. In fact, what did he do with Cain and Abel? He actually did the opposite. He turned up the volume on this tension, these priorities, and by saying, hey, I accept Abel and I don't accept Cain. So God is not going to rob us of the opportunity for you to become you, for you to become mature. In fact, he's going to create situations evidently that enable that, where we attack the day using our resources and relationships to build the kingdom of heaven. Strategizing and planning and trying to figure out how can we go to school in a way that heals it? How can we work with our coworkers in a way that heals them? How can we interact with our friends and family in a way that empowers them to see God, and where our countenance and our mood doesn't fall because we don't get more, but because we failed to live up to, the impact we could have had. That is what frustrates us, because it's not one or the other. We don't have to choose. That's a lie, right? Because when we prioritize our mission to merge heaven and earth in our little circles, then something special happens. The Spirit of God dwells, and all those weaknesses and flaws and insecurities that hold us back, and what I like to call our secondary priorities, begin to fall away. And not just in ourselves, but in those around us. And we walk around with empowered by God, and become these spheres of power and influence and wisdom. So I want you to ask yourself one question. What is the most organized, strategic, and structured area of your life? If it's not your relationship with God, then that's not what's going to be driving you. And if that's not what's driving you, then what is? And maybe more importantly, acknowledge where it came from. Take a breath. That means you're still alive. It's a fresh day. So take off your chains and put on your crown. And as always, let me know how it goes. I'll see you guys next time.